right, guys, Calibrated Power presents your special interview today, your special guest on the show. And shit, man, there's no other way to say it. Big Swinging Dick, second place at UCC. We got Shawn Baca. Shawn, how the hell are you?
Not bad. How about yourself?
Doing great, man. Doing great. Shawn, we've been talking since Shredder originally crashed, and you put Shredder 2 together right before UCC. I think that was 2 years ago or 3 years ago now.
Yep.
And essentially the same truck now has gone back to UCC each year, correct?
Correct.
Dude, coming up in the standings, how does second place overall feel?
It's better than third place.
Shawn, we were hoping you could share your kind of an overview of your experience being at UCC. You're a seasoned vet now at the show. You're one of the guys with a target on your back. Everybody's looking to beat Shawn Baca. I get that. But drag racing came up first day. We all know, man, the weather was rough in the morning, but we got kicked off in the afternoon there. You put down a hell of a time. I thought it was a really good show. How did you feel about drag racing on Friday?
It wasn't bad. I mean, once the weather came around, we got a whole new setup as far as the truck goes. You know, we lightened it up this year compared to last year, and we made a few changes. I ran my personal best. It was like a 5.6 something. We were fighting a few issues all day as far as suspension and chassis setup like that. You know, we knew going into this because we had zero test time on the truck. That basically the UCC was going to be the, test and tune on it. I feel like if we got a few more hits in throughout the day, as far as qualifying goes, I feel like we could have got the chassis dialed in a little bit better. But, I mean, it did great. I can't thank the guys enough for what they did, in the time crunch we were on. We did go a few rounds, but we just kept progressively the night. It got colder and colder, and the track, temperature got colder, so it was kicking the tires all day. And, we've never had a problem with horsepower and stuff like that, but the last couple rounds, it just kicked the tires, and I got something going on in the front end. This truck's always, tried to kill me every time we go down the drag strip. So, it's kind of me versus Shredder fighting all night, and something's going on with the front end where it gets death wobble, and death wobble at like 130 mile an hour is not ideal.
No.
So,
yeah, when you're doing 560 in the eighth, and you guys were all breaking 130, 140 in the eighth mile. I can't imagine what that death wobble feels like. What do you just back out of it as soon as you feel it? Do you just try to muscle through it?
That's the thing. There's a few times I tried to pedal through it. Sometimes the truck does come around, sometimes it does whatever it wants, and at that point you just kind of got to hang on for the ride.
One of the things, following the truck, Shredder 2, if you will, it's the only crew cab long bed in the whole mix. And I mean, you've established yourself as being one of the more dominant guys on the dyno. The target's always been you. Anytime people are talking about, what's going to be capable this year, what's the horsepower torque numbers, your name is always in the mix. However, when it comes to the sled pull or the drag race, I wouldn't say in some scenarios or not, you haven't proven that, like, hey, the truck can be a true contender. And in this year, I mean, granted, the way you finished proved that. But, I mean, going to the track, running what you ran, we'll get into some of the sled pull stuff here in a minute. But you're just proving that the truck itself is, a force to be reckoned with altogether.
I always forget that it's a fucking long pad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. We took a lot of weight out of the truck. We actually scaled at UCC, and I don't know how accurate the scales are, but anyway, with me in the driver's seat, the truck weighed 5,300 pounds, which is 1,000 pounds lighter than last year. And then as far as the tune-up in the drag racing, we basically took a copy and paste setup out of the industrial drag truck. So, I mean, we know as far as that truck goes, it holds the records, all that stuff as far as the Pro Street. It's always chasing the ODSS circuit. So we know with that truck, we had about a low 5-second tune-up in it. We had trouble getting it to the ground, and obviously, my truck being a longer chassis truck, we were up against a few things as far as compared to the other truck that we couldn't exactly take the suspension out of that and put it in my truck. But
Sure.
Yeah, I'm overall happy with how the truck, finalized, but I feel like it's definitely got a lot more in it as far as drag racing goes, because we were only trapping 124, 125, and that truck should have easily been doing, mid 130s. But overall, I'm happy. We were cutting good 60s. We were cutting 135, 60s. So.
Jeez. But again, first time at the track.
That truck.
First time that truck set up at the track.
That's the first time that truck's ever gone rounds, and I had a blast driving the hell out of it. We were skating the whole way, But I think once we get it ironed out, it definitely runs, And I'd say 520s aren't out of the realm.
Wow. I think one of the things, too, having the longer wheelbase, that can be used in your favor. As the truck's skating around, it's a little easier to control than a shorter wheelbase, chassis.
Yeah, for sure. But it does, it presents its own
demons.
Problems here and there. And, obviously weight is a concern. But I feel like for a four-door long bed, it's, 5,300 pounds. That's pretty good in my book.
Skinniest big bitch I ever seen.
It's 1,000 pounds lighter than we were last year. So.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward to day 2, the dyno. There was definitely some videos that were leaked. You and Milliken were posting some stuff about, the truck and different turbo configurations and things like that. So what was your mindset going into day 2?
I've always been chasing that horsepower number. That's what the truck originally was built to do and has done in the past. We were shooting for that 3,000 horse. We definitely, had enough nitrous on board to send it into space. But we were fighting some fueling issues. We got these new injectors, and they're huge. And so, we couldn't really get a good log as far as drag racing goes, as far as data logging the engine.
Okay.
And so that we went up on the dyno and logged it, and we were losing about 18,000 pounds of rail pressure, which is not ideal. Obviously, that's going to pull back,
of course,
a ton on the fueling side. So, we definitely had a couple issues there. But the truck still made 2,000 horse. I held first place for the majority part of the day, and then it was enough to get me out to third place. So obviously the truck's done better before, years past, but there's always going to be trials and errors when you're trying to push the limits on all this stuff, especially going into the event untested.
Well, I
feel like the truck has always held its own, where I'm out there with the biggest target on my back, especially when it comes to dyno event. So,
yeah, but in the past, to be number 1, number 2 in the dyno, you were still in the top 3, 4, whatever for dyno itself. But to be second overall, that just proves that you don't have to be the king on the dyno. You have to be well rounded in all 3 events.
Well, let's also call out the point that when we talk about 2,400 horse in years past and 2,200 horse in this year. Mm-hmm. Hey, listen, if your personal daily driver is down 200 horsepower, something's broke.
Right.
When you're at this level, that's a 1% variance. That's just the difference in how the dyno operator ran the test window in a given day, or ambient air temperature or humidity. It's a 1% change. We would call that a consistent dyno run.
Right.
On anybody else, right? If you ran it back to back 3 times, you're like, they're all really close.
Tire slippage, everything.
Yeah. Yep. That was one thing I did hear a lot of guys talking about, is tire slippage on the dyno. Did you guys measure any of that? Were you guys watching that? Was that a concern for you?
That's the thing with the dyno. It's kind of hard to monitor, tire slippage and all that stuff. We didn't really get a good log as far as, mile per hour and stuff like that goes. But as far as the engine tabs, the truck's, it made 177 pounds of boost, which it's never done before. So, whether that was good or bad, the truck, like I said, it's never done that before. Years past, it's made, 2,500 horse, about 150 pounds of boost. But as far as the logs that we did get off the dyno, we are losing rail pressure, which is, something that we kind of were guessing that it would do, given the new injectors and stuff like that. It kind of feels, basically, like I said, UCC was our testing tune. So, but as far as the dyno goes, I know the truck's got more power in it. We got all new, brand new Garrett Gen 2 106 chargers on it. The engine's bigger and badder than it's ever been. You know, we just got a lot to work with, and like you said, there's a lot of variables, especially when it comes to dynoing, whether it's the air temperature or quality of the air, tire slippage, stuff like that. There's a lot of things you got to account for.
Sure.
So what did you change on the truck from the day one racing to the day two on the dyno?
As far as the truck goes, engine wise, we drag raced with a single. I think we had a single 91 millimeter on there, and that one, I'm surprised. Hats off to Garrett Turbos. That thing was making 98 pounds of boost on drag day out of a single, which
is insane.
Yeah, that's pretty wild for a single Charger. But yeah, that's the only thing we changed really. Between the dyno setup and the drag race setup, we go from a single to the triples, and obviously like the intercooler and all that stuff gets changed out to the big water to air to handle all the extra boost.
So
and obviously the nitrous tune up, but yeah.
How much time do you guys spend thrashing on the truck then Friday night?
In between each setup, obviously the sled pull's a lot more entailed because we changed the whole drivetrain out on the truck. But as far as, I'd say about anywhere from, 4 to 6 hours in between setups.
Man, that's a long day.
Insane.
Yeah, because we roll into the track. I mean, for our listeners, keep in mind, even if it's raining, we all get there at 8:30 in the morning, right? And I'm sure, Shawn, you and the team were there ready to roll Thursday morning like scheduled. And then you stand around, you wait, it's cold, it's wet, you're not sure when you're going to get on the track. All of a sudden you see the torches firing up, they start prepping the track. You got to be out there. You got to go out and qualify all morning. And then you got to go out and you got to bracket race all afternoon. I think the last truck ran down the track around midnight on Friday. So then at that point, then you guys go over, you start thrashing on the truck. You got 4 to 6 hours in it. Guess what? Show starts at 8:30 the next morning. Rain or shine, you got to be there, got to be ready to roll. What time did you guys finally get on the dyno Saturday?
I can't even remember. Honestly, the entire time being out at UCC is kind of a blur, but it was, and that's one of those things, like you mentioned, the time frame, that's one of those things you got to account for being a competitor is, you're they were drag racing until midnight, and if you were the last one on the track and you could have, when we do the dyno stuff, we draw numbers, you could have been the first one up on the dyno, and luckily, the weather, wasn't permitting. So I think they started running the dynos right around 3 o'clock, I want to say.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think we went up about, I want to say around 5 o'clock.
Okay.
But if they hadn't, if we had fired off right at 8 o'clock, that's one of those things where that's UCC, man. You're the last on the track and then the first on the next one. So that's one of those things you kind of got to account for being a competitor is, how far do you want to take it? If you have enough points accumulated, can you drop out and change over to the next setup? Stuff like that. It's kind of one of those things where, and that's, UCC, anybody, you can be on top one day and next thing you know, your legs are kicked out from under you and you got a whole lot of ground to make up for the next event.
That's the truth of it, man. And hey, speaking of making up a lot of ground, I want to talk about the difference between last year's sled pull and this year's sled pull. Shawn, you kicked ass this year. You looked like a regular Midwesterner out there, man.
Yeah, that's, the track, there's a lot of issues as far as the track, sled, and all that goes. I'm not going to get too far into it, but the track, it's not ideal.
Right.
They lost the transmission in the sled, so the guy that was in front of me had some issues, and they didn't, obviously I had chose a different line than that guy chose, but sled wasn't operable. So it's kind of one of those things, do you want to put off the show and get the dozers out there and move the sled, or do you just want to take that dude's line and run what you brung? And, I didn't want to put off the show any longer than it already had to, so I just took his line. And we actually changed tuners. Ben Chatty's tuning my truck now, and it's definitely a lot more as far as control of the truck, as far as sled pulling, especially having full throttle control of that truck is definitely an issue that I've had in the past, where I get hooked to the sled and start walking it out, and then bring on the power. And then, you know, these common rails, they hit so hard once you start getting into the throttle on them, you know, and that's all, you know, tuning based and turbos and all that stuff has a lot to play with it. But yeah, hats off to Shaddy for giving me those smooth tunes where I could actually, you know, walk the truck out, let the chassis settle, and get some traction, and then bring the power in.
So you were more or less able to control how the truck came into its power band by the throttle, so you had a more linear throttle response, you're saying?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
So, you know, it's more like a, you know, P-pump, because these common rails, we can manipulate the throttle tables just by,
Oh, yeah.
you know, a quarter throttle could be 100% throttle.
Oh,
you know?
you
So
can scale these things out. I mean, you can make a 200 horse truck feel like a 500 horse truck in some points.
Yeah, and these common rails, they, I mean, the way the timing is and everything, they just hit so violent. You know, and when it comes to sled pulling, you want smooth, progressive power, you know,
Yep.
where it's, you got to just enough traction. And, you know, because obviously if you have too much power, you're going to kick the tires and you're just going to get up on top of the dirt and then not go anywhere.
Right.
So it's one of those fine lines you got to walk, and that's the thing. We're starting to get tabs on this truck. The more and more we run it, you know, definitely getting some more drivability out of it and fine-tuning everything.
Yeah, it's been amazing, Shawn, honestly, to see you going from drag racing and dynoing and sled pulling year after year. Definitely one of the top competitors here at UCC. Like you said, man, second overall is no joke. Third place in the sled pulls at 287. The drag racing, it still looked good, ninth place overall. And then that big third place over on the dyno results, well, man, it really brought you in, show you that you're a well-rounded competitor. You know what you're doing regardless of what the track or what the competition was. What do you got in store for next year, man? What does the rest of this year and next year's UCC look like for you?
As far as the rest of the season right now, I'm actually getting ready to unload the truck. I'm going to change the injectors to the old setup. Randy's transmission actually has a dyno event coming up here. I think it's in a week. You know, and he's the one that builds the transmission in this truck, so I'm definitely going to have it there at his event, and hopefully we smack that dyno and hit that number that we've all been waiting for. You know, and so I feel like I got a little bit of redemption to do after that 2100. You know, this truck's always made at least mid 2000s, so we barely cracked 2000. I gotta.
You placed second in UCC and you're hung up over the fucking dyno number?
It was 2194. Also, anybody else on earth would call this 2200.
That's the thing. You know, I'm not happy with the truck until it can back up what it's done before. You know, it should at least do what it's done in the years past. You know,
That's respectable.
That's you know, with this truck, we've always been on different ventures. You know, we've never kind of really stuck with one program. We're always, you know, I'm always out testing different transmissions and turbos and fueling and engine combinations and stuff like that. And I call the truck a Swiss Army knife because there's only a handful of trucks that can do what this truck does, you know, and this truck's, you know, like you said, it's been to the podium I don't know how many times, you know, when it comes to UCC. But I mean, it's a versatile truck. I know what it can do. I know the engine will make power. I know how fast it'll go. You know, it's just got to come back and sharpen our pencils and get some more dial-in time, really.
I love it, man. I'm excited to see what it does next. Shawn, anybody you want to give a shout out to?
You know, pretty much everybody. The fans, the friends, the family and followers, and all my sponsors, you know, Ben Shaddy at Done Right, guys at Angelo, Zach Hamilton, Garrett at Pure Diesel, Yukon Diamonds, you know, Industrial Injection for sure. They're the ones that let me do all this crazy stuff. And Belair, Nitrous Fest, they're the ones that, anytime I call those guys, they're definitely all about getting me more nitrous. So they want to see the horsepower just as much as I do. The guys over at Icebox, they built me a badass intercooler this year for drag racing. Carrillo, they always take care of me on the rods. TS, they have a hell of a data logging system on the truck. You know, I'm still getting familiar with that. So, you know, that's just one of those things where we kind of got to dial everything in. And, you know, the truck's always in progress. You know, we're always moving forward. And, to a lot of people, that's hard to do. In UCC, that's one of those things. UCC is anybody's game. It's just a matter of playing your cards right.
Well said.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, hey, one of the other things that was a lot of fun, Chris, was our trip over to WC Fab a few weeks ago. We're going to cut to a segment of that trip.
We've definitely learned what works and what doesn't work. As Chris mentioned, there's many different gauge thicknesses out there, and there's a lot of companies out there that sell intercooler pipes that shouldn't go on diesel trucks, in my opinion. They might work fine on a gasser application, making that 15 or 20 pounds of boost. But one thing, for example, is we'll talk about aluminum piping. Aluminum is nice because you don't got to worry about any sort of rust on the inside of the pipes. And in some applications, you could just put the pipe on your vehicle raw. You don't even have to powder coat it, even though most people would like to. And we use all sorts of materials. We use stainless, we use mild steel, we use aluminum. And as of lately, we're actually converting a lot of product over to aluminum, but we're not using the standard as most people have in the past of 16 gauge. The problem with 16 gauge aluminum and high boost applications is you go to put your T-bolt clamp on your silicone boot, and I don't think I've ever seen anyone, and I know none of you probably do either, put a torque wrench on your T-bolt clamps. You just crank them down.
Right.
And when you're cranking down a T-bolt clamp, you're going to crank that sucker down until it stops cranking. And
Or
the
it blows out.
Or it blows out. Or you strip it out. I mean, you want to keep your boost in. You don't want your boots blowing off. Obviously the bead rolls are there, and that's important. But the issue with some of the thinner gauge aluminum is obviously much softer. You start cranking on that T-bolt clamp, and it essentially will dent or cave in the pipe and essentially cause a boost leak, cause the boost to blow off. So what we've done recently with a lot of our product, A, for weight savings, and B, for rust for prevention, is we've changed a lot of intercooler piping over to aluminum, but we're not using 16 gauge, we're using 14 gauge.
Okay.
It's thicker, and you're not going to concave it. I mean, numerous occasions, numerous sizes, before going in the oven, after going in the oven, because aluminum can be annealed and become soft and hard through different processes. You will strip out a T-bolt clamp before you ever cave in or dent one of our intercooler pipes from tightening a clamp too much. So it's just like we mentioned earlier, improving upon older product and just making things better as we go along and as we learn things. So the cost savings, aluminum is going to be a cheaper material for us to buy versus, say, stainless steel. Stainless steel is your top tier, most expensive material you're going to buy. And, it's tough shit, but it's going to raise the price of all this product that is already very expensive.
Sure.
So we're able to keep prices the same or potentially even drop prices and offer you a better, longer lasting material that's not going to fail under these high boost applications that these trucks see.
The Diesel Performance Podcast is brought to you by Calibrated Power Solutions, home of DuramaxTuner.com. Calibrated Power develops emissions-equipped calibrations for a wide variety of diesel powertrains, including the Duramax, Cummins, PowerStroke, John Deere, Case, New Holland, and many more. For more information and great customer service, check out calibratedpower.com or call 815-568-7920. That's 815-568-7920.